IP package. I mean, no way John's going to actually go.
Welcome to the Bladtcast. I wanted to make sure we got started. I am Christian Blatt. As always, this is the Bladtcast. Very excited to have assembled for you three of the greatest minds in terms of film criticism that I've had to interact with. One of them being mine. No, of course, I'm very excited to have the panel we have here today. Two of whom have never been on the Bladtcast before. We'll start with the one who has been here before, Liam McEneany. Thank you for coming back on the show, sir.
Thanks for inviting me back, despite all the things that happened last two times I was on the show.
Wow, we dissected the premiere episode of the Chevy Chase show to commemorate its 30th anniversary. And
I also almost ended your longtime friendship with Ryan.
That actually had nothing to do with you. That had something to do with a clip that I played. But don't worry, that part of the episode has been scrubbed from the internet. So only we have the memory of it. But yeah,
what happened?
I'll tell you off air, Bill.
Okay.
It's actually pretty funny.
But yeah, well, just our one host decided he didn't want to do the show and then came back after like 2 minutes.
Bill, what happened was literally nothing, and someone took it personally.
Okay.
All right. Well, now I have to get the official commemorative. This will make Vinnie feel at home. I'll get the bell for that. Thank you for encapsulating it so well. But yes, we spent about 3 hours dissecting 42 minutes of the Chevy Chase show. And this will be kind of the reverse. We're going to try to spend 45 minutes talking about a 3.5 hour movie. Liam McEneany, thank you for being here. And I've shared a screen with Vinnie Paulino before, but never on the Bladtcast before. Vinnie, thank you for making the time for us. Much appreciated.
Totally appreciate the invite. I'm excited to talk about this movie with you guys.
And people know Vinnie from the great subreddit Surfing, which he co-hosts with Potato, Cardiff Electric, and also the Creep Off, which he co-hosts with a different vegetable, Carl Hamburger. You can find both of those shows wherever podcasts are found. And excited to finally have an excuse. Bill Narducci and I have been talking about doing a podcast for, I don't know, about a decade. And I'm glad that this was the movie that finally brought you here to the channel. Yeah, exactly. So I want to just start sort of big picture. Obviously, there's something that people might be critical. And look, when I looked and I was about to buy my tickets on the AMC app, I saw it was 3 hours and 24 minutes. And I just had to plan differently. I'm like, oh, the day I was going to go see it, I can't see it that day. I needed more time, but I made it work. I saw it in IMAX. Everything worked out. So
I wish I had done that, man. I wish I had done that. I did not look at the runtime on this movie before I bought the tickets. And I bought, you ready for this? 9:30 p.m. showing.
Well, I'll tell you what. I knew the runtime. I also knew that the screening I was going to be completely packed. So I actually did a beverage inventory and stopped drinking caffeinated beverages 90 minutes before the screening and cut down on my water consumption because I knew that like to leave to go to the bathroom at any point would be a major production.
Oh yeah. You would definitely irritate so many people if you got
especially I was in a screening full of Scorsese super fans. So it was
wait now I need to ask, where did you see it?
Yeah, where did you see it? In LA?
I saw it at a certain film school on the West Coast.
Gotcha.
And the co-writer was there, and it was actually an amazing experience. But I was dehydrated at the end of the night.
Well, look, I think that we all were maybe a little dehydrated after it, but I think that it's very easy. Look, there's movies that you can talk about where you're like, I don't quite know why it was as long as it was, but this didn't really feel like one of those. We'll obviously break it down. I really feel like the last hour of it is like, it was all set up to like, okay, well now here's what it's really about. This is what it's all been building to, and it just happens to take an hour. Let me ask each of you just sort of overall thoughts. I'll start with you, Bill Narducci. Just overall thoughts after you saw the movie. What were you thinking?
I wish it was longer. And actually, I heard that Scorsese wanted to put an intermission in, and that would have that would have saved the movie, like Hateful Eight.
Yeah, I was gonna mention Hateful Eight did that. Kenneth Branagh did like a 4-hour Hamlet at some point. There was literally an intermission in the middle. I think there's something to be said for an intermission.
I'm a Scorsese super fan, so I really enjoyed it. I thought it was better than The Irishman. I love the book. I wish they kind of filmed the book, I thought it was that's 7 out of 10. The music was amazing. Also, yeah. Robbie Robertson destroyed it. You know, without him, I don't know if I would have liked it as much. But the true story is crazy. I just wish they stuck to the book. But I get in this day and age, it's kind of hard to do that.
Let me ask, Bill, did you read the book because you heard it was going to be a movie, or had you just happened to read the book ahead of time?
I just happened to read the book ahead of time. Yeah, I thought it was 7 out of 10. You know, I didn't super love Wolf of Wall Street when I first saw it, and now it's like my comfort movie. So, you know, I was like, crazy movie. I
agree with your assessment on The Irishman, by the way. This is definitely better than that. And I'm sorry, I was speaking over someone, but I wasn't sure who it was. No. So.
I remember your status when you were like, Wolf of Wall Street is awful. And I kind of agree with you, but now I can't stop watching.
To be fair, I haven't rewatched it, but the way people talk about it now, I'm like, I might look at it a little differently. But
I rewatched it this week. It is exactly the same as the last time I saw it. Like like some movies I watch it a second or third time and I catch everything I missed the first time, and I'm like, okay, well, this was better than I thought. But this one was exactly what Wolf of Wall Street was exactly what I thought the first 2 times I watched it. I will say, like, I agree with you that I wish that that Jesse Plemons' character had been more of a major role. But from what I understand, that was the role that originally Leo DiCaprio was going to play, and then he kind of just decided that that the Berkman, his character was more interesting, and it's the one he wanted to play. And because Leo DiCapricorn is the guy that the funding tracks the funding. Right. They restructured the screenplay and the story so that Ernest was the main character instead of an ancillary character.
That's interesting. I didn't know that, and I definitely thought that Jesse Plemons would have been welcome a little bit earlier. But I don't think it really detracted from my enjoyment of it. It's just more I tend to enjoy him, and I thought this character was great. Vinny, what did you think when you saw Killers of the Flower Moon?
What I really liked about this movie was the world building in it, because I really wasn't sure what to expect going into this movie in terms of the story. I didn't read the book. I had a general idea, but I went in there and he built an entire world. There was lots of little establishment scenes to help you figure out everything that was going on around it. And it was just an amazing tapestry of a movie. Like, everything came together, and I watched it for 3.5 hours and I didn't feel bored at all. So, I mean, that's an accomplishment in itself. And it's filmed beautifully. The cinematography is beautiful. The score is beautiful. I had a hard time finding anything I really didn't like about it. So I thought it was probably his best work in a long time.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's actually hard for me to think about, like, when was the last time I saw a Scorsese movie and I was like, yeah, this is great. But in terms of, like, just some of the visuals, I mean, like, right out of the box, just sort of just setting the tone, kind of giving us the backstory, and the scene which our visual audience is going to see. It's on the IMAX version of the poster when they're just dancing around when they strike oil. And just sort of the symbolism of, like, just literally bathing yourself in oil. But of course, everything that goes with it is really what the movie talks about. And I think there are just tremendous performances across the board. I mean, we've mentioned Jesse Plemons. We've mentioned, of course, Leo. Look, De Niro at this point, you don't always know what you're going to get with him. I think that it's very erratic from, I don't know, Rocky and Bullwinkle onward, maybe, and it's not even just because he does comedies, because he's great in some comedies, the first Meet the Parents is great. We could spend some time talking about some of those movies, but it just in general, there's definitely times where you go, oh, I don't know, that didn't really work. But I thought he was phenomenal in this. Let me go around and ask you first, Vinny. What did you think of De Niro in this?
Did anybody else feel like he played that character in a very delicate way? Like he didn't
Yes.
play it like over the top in any way with like the Southern accent or anything like that. He was a very understated guy. And there's one particular scene, I obviously don't want to give anything away in the movie, but everybody got bad news. And the way
Yeah.
he reacted to it was just so like natural and like, wow, what an actor and what a scumbag at the same time. He was able to get that nuance of being like just a phony piece of shit into that performance, while also kind of feeling, earnest and what he was trying to say to these people. It was a crazy thin balancing act for that role, because you had to be like the public nice guy, but then you also realize he's insidiously evil at the same time. And De Niro, home run. I thought he was phenomenal.
I thought
Go ahead.
De Niro and DiCaprio gave amazing lifetime, like once in a lifetime performances. And the thing about both of those performances is you never ever catch them acting, right? Like you never ever catch De Niro putting on a performance, even though this is the kind of character I've never seen him play before, right? And I was a little bit worried that his accent might slip, but he's such a tightly disciplined actor. But also, I mean, these are two actors that Scorsese has been directing for decades, right? Like his relationship with De Niro goes back to the early set, like 1970, I think. That's when Mean Streets came out. I don't remember, but so it's like he kind of knows how to push their buttons now, and really knows how to like draw out these performances that other directors. I mean, no shade to Meet the Fockers, but
Well,
the
you
other
can-
directors don't know how to like pull out these performances from him that Scorsese kind of can do.
in terms of the notion that he at times is underplaying the character in the best sense of that concept, and you don't see the acting. The scene when they're at the movie theater and they're watching the newsreel footage of the Tulsa riots, which probably, like many people, I knew absolutely nothing about until the HBO show Watchmen opened with it, and then you Google and you're like, wait, that's a real thing. I had no idea. But anyway, watching that, and just there's a way to play that where like the light bulb goes off in his eyes, but instead he's just watching it with great interest. And I was watching that scene with great interest myself, because I'm like, oh, I wonder, are they gonna fuck this up? Where it's like, we should try that around here. What do you think? But I should have known better. Scorsese wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't have even filmed it as like an alternate take. But what do you think, Bill, as you watch De Niro throughout this film?
Oh, this evil incarnate. It was crazy. I was like, I can't believe someone would be this evil. I thought that scene with when he first meets Leo after he comes back from the war, it was so long, but it was so awesome. You could see like his type of personality and asking the questions, and like, you sure you don't have any infection in your stomach? It was like,
yeah, you wrap that thing up while you were out there. Oh yeah, of course I did. Yeah,
you like women, right?
I know. It's almost like if this had been staged as a play, I would have been like, yeah, you could have done another 20 minutes of that scene, and I would have enjoyed it. I mean, boy, that would have done something to a movie runtime. But yeah,
this might sound unlikely, but thinking about it afterwards, it reminded me a lot of Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird. Even though they're polar opposite type characters, to me it was the same kind of like gentle performance. In this case, like De Niro was using his gentility to mask evil instead of like pure goodness incarnate. But otherwise, it was like very much reminded me of Gregory Peck.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, I mean, I think that you're comparing great actors and great films and all of that, but there's something to be said for the fact that that thought even occurs to you. And obviously, there's the tremendous cast, and we're talking about it. But obviously, a movie like this works when you have Lily Gladstone as Molly. And I think that I don't know, the first 15, 20 minutes of screen time she has. She barely says anything, but she does bring this presence in here. And I think that if I had to guess the casting process, I feel like this was probably the part that you spend the most time on, because there isn't, I don't know, there isn't an actor with a capital A that you can think of for it. But what did you think, Vinny, of sort of, especially the first scenes where Leo, Ernest, is driving Molly around, when we're getting to kind of watch the two of them get to know each other? What did you think of Lily Gladstone in this, Vinny?
What's amazing is it's great establishing the relationship where, you kind of know he wants something, and she kind of assumes he wants something, but watching her kind of fall for him and realize maybe this guy isn't so bad, even though I kind of have my guard up. I think she played that beautifully, and it made you feel even worse for her, because you saw what like a strong woman she was, and like you see this relationship where she is the one very much in control before she lets him into her world, and then to watch her whole world fall apart through the whole thing is just makes this movie way more emotional than it would be if she wasn't such a strong woman at the beginning of it.
Just a comment in the chat I want to bring in. Dominicus Saxon says, I can't sit 3.5 hours in a theater. I'd have to watch half, then come back to watch the next day to see the rest. It is going to be on Apple TV very soon, actually. I don't actually know what the date is because I wanted to see it in the theater. But it is an Apple movie, but they, of course, also do a theatrical release so that it can qualify for awards. Bill, tell me your thoughts watching sort of this, this low rent Leo, this not as sharp as some of the characters he's played before. I would say the worst teeth I've ever seen Leo have in a movie, but watching he and Molly get to know each other and basically, I don't know, I guess she gets ensnared in his family's web, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, he's so underrated. Like, even in The Departed, I thought he was better than Mark Wahlberg, who got the Oscar nom, or Matt Damon, who got accolades for that. He really brings it. I mean, it's crazy. Like, besides his celebrity, he really is one of the best actors out there. But I also thought that, like, one suggestion is, if you go see this movie, I would see it like at the Alamo Draft House, where there's not tons of trailers and commercials before. Like, because if you see like AMC, I saw it at Cinemark, and it was like 4 hours. It was crazy.
I saw it at AMC Burbank 16. Big ups to Burbank. And there were 32 minutes of trailers and pre-show, including, of course, Nicole Kidman, making sure that we all know that AMC makes movies better.
I hate that commercial so much. My wife looks at me and laughs every time that comes on the screen because I get so triggered. Heartbreak feels good in a place like this. I want to scream, Christian.
Go ahead, Liam.
I went to see Dix the Musical, which has a somewhat different crowd than Killers of the Flower Moon. It was all theater majors and gay dudes. And they cheered when Nicole Kidman came on screen.
Wow.
And they recited the monologue along with her, and they cheered when it was over. So it has fans.
I think
they're making fun of it.
No, there's a crowd. There's definitely a Yes Queen crowd that when they see her up there. I assume that doesn't happen up in the Rochester area, Vinny. Actually, you know what? When I was up there in June, I saw Asteroid City at an AMC, and I will tell you, no one reacted, no one flinched, no one had any thoughts at all about the Nicole Kidman pre-show. But
I might be the only person who has these strong feelings, apparently, but I hate it very much.
Yeah, but I mean, it's depending on the movie that you go to see. That it's funny that you say that, Liam, because I was literally about to bring up the fact that there are times when the crowd basically, they either recite it, or I've been there for multiple standing ovations, and I'm just like, oh, come
In
on,
Burbank?
like,
In
Yeah.
Burbank?
yeah, in
That's the
Burbank,
Burbank.
yeah,
It's
Which-
the Burbank
which-
16, though.
which is the suburbs of LA, Vinny, and it's this isn't like going in Hollywood. And when I saw one of my least favorite movies of my lifetime, Don't Worry, Darling, before that, you could tell the crowd that had come out were definitely the stand and applaud for Nicole Kidman. But anyway, we certainly
Vinny,
digress.
Just to explain the culture around the Burbank 16, when The Flash bombed horribly, there was one theater where screenings were sold out. And my theory is it was everyone in the industry going to make sure it was as bad as everyone says it was.
It's a lot of industry turnout. And one of the best things about living in the LA area is that we tend to not have bad theaters with bad projections and bad sound, because most likely in a showing somebody works there. But
is there any theater in LA that doesn't have trailers besides the Draft House? Because the ArcLight.
Back when the ArcLight was still open, you'd get like 2 maybe, and some of like the Lemleys. But in general, I mean, your big chain theaters. Bill, you said you saw it at Cinemark, and Vinny, did you have like a barrage of trailers, or were they respectful of the runtime?
Yes, absolutely. It was 9:30 at night too. It was the worst. There's no respect. Like, can we just get less trailers after 9? Compromise this.
Let me get into Marvel.
Maybe not show the Nicole Kidman thing, so my eyes don't back of my head, and somebody has to give me an EpiPen.
As expensive as movies can be now, if there was a $5 surcharge for showings where there were no trailers, I think I'm going to speak for the 4 of us and say, like, yeah, I would absolutely take it every time. I would
pay
be like,
10.
I'll pay 10. So, Bill, you had read the book beforehand, but Vinny, what did you know about this movie going into it? Obviously, there were trailers that gave us little flashes of it, but what did you know going in, and what were your expectations for the movie?
Well, I host a show called The Creep Off where we talk about this type of atrocity all the time, so I was aware of the Osage Indians and what. I don't know if they call it a massacre, but it really should be considered a massacre.
Yeah.
It was a very slow massacre. But I knew a little bit about that, and I knew that's what it was about. I knew it was De Niro, and I knew it was DiCaprio, and I knew it was Scorsese, and I avoided everything else like the plague before the movie started. I wanted to go in fresh.
Yeah, I knew what I got from the trailer, which, is cut together in a way where I don't think it really gave much away. You just know at some point the feds start sniffing around. You just didn't know that came at the 2 hour and 15-minute mark of the movie. But
I didn't know Jesse Plemons was in it, and when I saw he was in it, I was like, hey!
I think Jesse Plemons is that guy. When he's in something, you're like, yes, all right, I love that guy. What about you, Liam?
I'll say I knew Jesse Plemons was in it, but after 2.5 hours, I forgot. So then when he showed up, I was like, holy shit, Jesse Plemons is in this. And it was like a very nice semi-surprise.
So you're basically Tom Hanks, Mr. Short-Term Memory. Hey, Tony Randall! Tony Randall, would you sign this for me? Yeah, so Jesse Plemons.
I unfortunately had a very good time in my 20s and early 30s, so my short-term memory is not the best.
Well, good for you, though, Liam.
But I will say, I went to New York City Public High School before everyone read Howard Zinn. So I didn't know anything about the Osage murders. The Tulsa race riots I learned about just by reading when I was a kid. Sundown Towns I read about, but like I never had a comprehensive education about the evils of America. So I didn't know anything. I decided not to read the book or read any articles or anything before I went in, because I decided if I don't know anything, I want to just go in cold to this movie. I kind of didn't know anything about the Osage County or the fact that like the Osage Indians were the richest people on earth for a while. So at first I thought it was like a fiction story, because I was like, not in my America. No, because I was like, I had no idea. I thought it was like, and then there was a clue early in the movie that this was a true story. And I was like, oh man, what happened here? And so I was actually able to enjoy that ride because of that.
Yeah, I think that not really knowing where it was going or any of that, I think helps, and just sort of, I don't quite know what I thought it was going to be, but I didn't know that much about the backstory, the fact based nature. Without dwelling too much on the book, Bill, I'm curious: are there major things that you can say that it would have been great if this was in here? Without it, I guess, giving away the movie or the book too much.
Well, I'd say half of the book is about how the FBI was created because of the situation.
Right.
But I would say the movie shows the brutality much more. It's much worse in the movie than in the book. I mean, you just see like when you see the certain tribe members being killed, it's absolutely horrendous. And in the book, you get like a Mississippi Burning type of vibe, where it's like a protagonist trying to solve a crime. But I think in terms of the actual brutality of the situation, the movie did it better than the book.
And sort of watching the way that it unfolds, and let me know if any of you disagree. I do believe that Ernest, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, I do believe that he loves Molly, but he's got this sort of allegiance to his uncle and to his family, and he's also pretty dumb, so it's very easy for him to be taken advantage of and just sort of not realizing. I don't think that he's just like, oh, I want to try to find me, one of these women that I can marry into their family and get their money. I think that, yes, King talks about that, but at the same time, it's like, well, there is one that I like. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like, all right, I'm going to pretend I like somebody. I don't know. Do you guys feel that maybe it changes as the movie goes along? But I feel like even at the end, when he's sort of reflecting on everything, that he does still love her. I think her opinion has changed somewhat. But what do you think, Vinny?
Well, to be honest with you, I watched it at 9:30 at night, and I've thought about this a lot. I've thought about this very aspect of this movie a lot. And I've been trying to figure out, they purposely kind of left it vague as to Ernest's intentions with Molly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Does he realize she's being poisoned by the medicine that he thinks she's getting, or does he legitimately think that she's sick? They never really answer that. Do you know what I mean? Because King is always saying, make sure she gets her medicine, make sure she gets her medicine and stuff like that. So I don't know how evil Ernest was, if he was just a useful idiot, because he clearly was an evil dude. He did a lot of terrible things. But as far as his intentions towards Molly, I felt that they were, for the most part, pure, because they didn't specifically say he was trying to hurt her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like supporting that idea is the notion that, I mean, we're, I don't know, weeks or months in for him administering her insulin with, the extra shot. And then eventually he like smells it and tastes it and passes out. So then he realizes like, okay, but up until that point, he's just like, well, they tell me that this is what's going to save her life, so I'm going to give it to her. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit or not enough credit for being dumb. What did you think, Bill? And is your perception of this perhaps shaped by the fact that you did read the book and maybe it went more in depth to his thought process?
The debate is whether he's dumb or he's in on it. And that's what everyone has an issue with that. And that's probably the biggest criticism of the movie. I personally think he's dumb, and they don't really super talk about it as much in the book because it's really about the Jesse Plemons character. I was just shocked that one of the doctors was from Valerie's family, and I couldn't believe he would do such a mean thing.
Can I give the most annoyingly film school response to this question?
Oh, please do. I think out of Vinny's tapped out.
No,
I think
without
without getting too personal, Liam, I think you're the one who's qualified to give us the most annoying film school reaction. So please, the floor is yours, as they say.
One of I apologize, and Vinny, this is the intermission, so feel free to take a piss or whatever. But basically, one of the recurring motifs in Scorsese's oeuvre is this idea that like people say he talks about toxic masculinity. That's what his subject is, but it's actually about incredibly weak men who have to make a choice between the thing they love or gaining material goods. Because like Scorsese's this very Catholic, Italian Catholic filmmaker. So a lot of like in Goodfellas, it's Henry Hill. He's constantly given choices throughout the movie to kind of like leave the life, but also leave the money and the flashy side of it. Same with Casino. Same like Last Temptation of Christ is all about Jesus making that choice to give up being the savior of the world and just lead a normal life with two wives. And then he realizes that he has to sacrifice himself and he has to give up this life he wants in exchange for saving the world. So
Two
I feel
wives at the cross. What a tough choice.
well, it's a lot of listening, Vinny. It's not a lot of mortal men can endure that much.
That's what I'm saying.
But anyway, my point is just Ernest is forced to make that choice and he betrays the woman he loves. And that point really comes at the end of the movie when she point blank says to him, "Was there anything in the medicine you gave me?" And there's that long pause. And then he's like, it was just medicine.
Right.
And I feel like that really answers the question more than anything, where he's like knows what his uncle's up to. And he knows that like he married this wealthy Osage woman. And he knows that at some point this is going to come where he's going to have to kill his wife. And the fact is they kind of do it sneakily. So he doesn't have to consciously make that choice for a very long time until they start adding stuff to her insulin. That's my take on it. The balcony is closed.
There's a moment late in the film where I thought it was going somewhere very different, because there's the brother comes back to the house. It's a flashback, and Molly goes downstairs and brings him a pillow, and we're starting to see like, okay, well, here's where this person's murder happened. And I had this moment where I'm like, oh shit, was Molly in on all of it and she wiped out all of her own family so that she could have all this money? And then it doesn't go that way. But there's, so just me, I thought it was, like a more eloquent Kaiser Soze moment. And I was just like, are we about to have the FBI tell us? And then it was like, no, actually, that's not what happened. The guys who you thought were, up to no good were up to no good. So I have to admit I was a little disappointed because I thought I was about to have my mind blown. And I was like, oh, no. But you know what? You don't have to tell stories like that, I guess. In terms of the ending, I have seen some reactions to the choice for how here's what happened after everything happened. And the fact that it's recreated as a radio play of the era, which I think is an interesting choice. It's better than giving the black title card scenes. I think, it's sort of representative of a time and place. I'll ask each of you if anybody had any thoughts of that. Vinny, did you have any issues with that, or was it 1 a.m. so you're like, I don't even remember that happening?
Well, no, I remember that very clearly, and I remember looking at my watch and it being about 20 after 1, going, "Wow, this is a relief. They're just gonna tie this all up for me right now. I could carry my wife to the car like a child because she's asleep." It was an interesting choice. And I kind of liked it when I saw it, and then I thought about it after, and I was like, well, this clearly was a result of the runtime and having to decide I can't have like another hour and a half of the trial. I got to show the establishing shots of De Niro dying in a nursing home. I got to go through all this stuff to get there. I thought it was a fine way to do it. I didn't think it sucked. It was what it was. I was indifferent towards it.
Well, if I know anything about Bill Narducci, that if you didn't like it, you'll have several reasons why. But if you did like it, please tell us so. But what did you think of sort of ending the movie on that specific choice?
I've heard a lot of criticism of the movie. A lot of people don't like it. But I've never heard one bad thing about that ending. Everyone seems to love the way he did it.
You're not on Twitter anymore, are you, Bill?
Not really. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm assuming Brendan Fraser thing's going to come up. I was curious. I mean, what people thought about that aspect of the movie.
I don't know.
Everyone loved that. Everyone loved the way he did it.
Just Brendan Fraser's performance.
No. That's a whole other subject. That could be another
Okay.
one. That was a little nutty.
I have to admit I was a little surprised to see him, and it takes some getting used to. Before we talk about Brendan Fraser, Liam, your thoughts as our resident film school historian.
Well, I will say, because I go to a film school on the West Coast, I'd rather not name because I want to stay in it and graduate. I got to see it with Eric Roth, who co-wrote it, and he said that the ending was the number one most divisive thing in the preview screenings. Wow. And he said, like, there's almost a 50-50 split between people who loved it and people who hated it. And I don't want to get too into detail about what I thought about it, obviously, because I want to spoil it for Dominicus Saxon.
Dominicus Saxon, who will get to see it on Apple TV over the course of like 4 days. He'll break it up into like episodes. Yeah.
While he's on his phone and also on his laptop. And, it's kind of like the best way to watch a movie.
I was going to say the way that the best films are always enjoyed. Yes, sir.
But I will say, I thought it took me aback. And it really at first I was not into it because it completely spoils the mood of everything you've just watched before. But I thought two things. I thought, A, it actually reminded me of the Creep Off a little bit, which was funny to me. I was like, Scorsese's doing like his version of the Creep Off, but he's also bookending the movie with like dead media that's now dead, right?
Right.
And I will say, B, I didn't know that was Jack White. He's apparently been through some things. And C,
I didn't know that was Jack White until you just said it.
Yeah. I have to admit, I also didn't know. I thought it was Meg White, but now that you say it, you're right. It is.
Stop it.
The third thing I'll say, and I realize I'm already spoiling the movie, but I will say, I ultimately thought it was a way for Scorsese as a filmmaker to implicate himself in and all of us and like everyone in the audience in terms of like what happened in the Osage murders, how Native Americans are still being treated, while also commenting on the fact that like, even though the story might have an ending, kind of like the situation that's depicted in the movie has never ended.
Yeah, I can't imagine that things are certainly great there. Even I don't know exactly, but it's about 100 years ago.
No, they had their money taken away from them, so now they have nothing to worry about.
Nothing.
No one's going to murder them.
Okay, well, nobody's going to murder you if you don't have any money. So there you go.
No money, less murders.
Yeah.
By the way, it seems like a great time, Vinnie, because Liam basically set you up. It seems like a great time for you to let people know exactly what the Creep Off is, because I think it ties into sort of the radio play aspect of this film.
Well, you know how the world is a terrible, awful place, everybody?
Sure.
We generally discuss that every week in a jovial kind of way where we argue with each other over who's a bigger creep. So we'll pick a category, for example, this upcoming episode, we're doing restaurant servers. So my co-host Carl from Who Are These Podcasts and I will each nominate who we believe to be the creepiest restaurant server of all time. And then we will act like reverse lawyers and explain why our person is worse. And then our listeners get to vote. So we have a lot of fun with it. But we also discuss a lot of atrocity.
And it's a true crime podcast, but I believe the first and possibly the only that is solely geared towards men. Because
numbers bear that out.
The numbers bear that out, exactly. And I'm sure that if we're going to talk about the Creep Off, you would want everybody to go to creepoff.com and vote Vinnie, even if they haven't watched the most recent episode or listened to it. They should just know to vote for you.
I would appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, Christian.
Vinnie, have we resolved the whole Carl is going to Gary, Indiana thing?
He's never going to do it.
He was never going to do it. He was being a crybaby about it the whole time, and I gave him an out, and then he cheated on his out too. So,
But I do believe for a subsequent punishment, our mutual friend, the Potato, is going to write a stand-up performance for him to deliver in March. up there in Rochester. Sorry, Bill disappeared. I was worried that I'd done something, but So the punishments don't always fit the crime. Is
Wait,
what
he's
you're
doing
saying,
stand up in March in Rochester.
Yeah,
before the subreddit surfing live show, correct?
Oh, I was hoping he was going to open for someone else.
Well, it's the
who's
same
gonna be there in
weekend.
March.
it is the same weekend. It's the night before. So
Yeah.
if you're coming, Liam,
Yeah,
come on by the subreddit surfing show. We'll have some fun.
it's the start of my spring break, and where better to spend spring break than Rochester in March?
To be fair, I went to Rochester for the first time in my life, despite growing up in the southern part of New York State, back in June, and it was lovely. I don't know what everybody was complaining about, Vinny, who went for DabbleCon last February.
I think
it was lovely when I went.
They were complaining about the negative temperature, the blowing snow, and the ice that was everywhere.
I didn't experience any of that. In fact, Vinny took me out to breakfast and bought me corned beef hash, something I can't say either of the two of you have ever done. So obviously it's one of my favorite places.
I've never fucked you, Christian. So
I mean, how do you thank someone for a hand job? I mean,
yeah,
guys,
exactly.
You buy him a plate of corned beef hash.
That's how it all works. Well, we've really veered away from Killers of the Flower Moon, but let's steer it back in. Are there things for any of you that you feel don't specifically spoil the movie? Was there a scene? Was there a character? Is there anything where you're just like, oh, come on? Where it would have been like almost perfect if not for this one thing. There doesn't have to be one of those, but even some of our favorite movies, there's always something that nagged at you, and for some people it's the radio play ending. But Liam, did the film school voice in the back of your head have anything that was?
I'll say this: Brendan Fraser and John Lithgow in such small roles. I just couldn't stop thinking, oh, that's Brendan Fraser. That's John Lithgow. And I didn't get it, but the screening I went to, everybody was just howling, laughing at literally everything Brendan Fraser said. And I was kind of like, well, none of this is funny.
Yeah.
In fact, the only thing that was missing from this movie for me is like Scorsese's a great comedy filmmaker. Like he drops these great comedy bits in his movies. And there was none of that in Killers of the Flower Moon. Until you get to Brendan Fraser, apparently, and I just didn't get it.
I think that there were moments, especially when they get back to the house, which is an issue for me. I'm just like, wait a minute, this guy's supposed to, be a part of this court case, trying to keep it semi-vague, and then they're given a chance to talk him out of it. And I'm like, all right, I don't really know how the law works, and maybe not at that time. So I'm just like, this seems highly irregular, but Brendan Fraser is so big in that scene, and I'm sorry, I'm actually not trying to be funny about the way he appears. It's just the performance is at a different level than everybody else in the scene. So maybe that's why people were laughing. I didn't find it laughable, but to your point about John Lithgow, I just kept thinking about Third Rock from the Sun because he was kind of giving that level. That this wasn't Garp. This wasn't like, some of his fight. This was just like, oh, okay. So this is how he's delivering this, but that's sort of very fast. Maybe it was just a lot of dialogue for him. Bill, was there anything for you that maybe stood out? It doesn't have to be actor. It could have been a poorly lit scene or something, but is there anything that nagged at you?
It's one of the best shot movies of all time.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And
Hard to argue that.
The fire scene was amazing, and I guess Rodrigo Pietro shot it. I was like, who shot this? This is amazing. The Brendan Fraser, everyone laughed in the theater. I don't get the animosity towards John Lithgow, who is one of the nicest people in Hollywood. Also, it's like he's notoriously nice.
I don't have anything against Lithgow. It's just kind of like it was such a small role that every time he was on screen, I was like, Lithgow.
It's true, but I just, the Fraser performance was nutty. I don't really get what was going on there. To be honest, it was crazy.
Yeah,
it was really nuts.
And it's not like he's like that in everything. That's certainly not what The Whale was.
It wasn't like that in Bedazzled.
No, he's not like.
Was
that
he like that in
Patrol.
Encino Man? I can't remember. I can't think that far back.
No, and he was a caveman.
Yeah, that's true. It would have.
He actually gave an incredibly grounded performance in Encino Man.
Yeah.
It's a great point. Was there anything for you, Vinny? That and by the way, did your wife legitimately fall asleep during it? I mean, it was a late
Probably 2 or
screening.
3 times. Probably
Yeah.
2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
Um,
my wife fell asleep during The Flash, and I was just envious of her. I was like, oh, I wish I was sleeping right now.
I saw a guy throw a noose over a beam in the theater and hang himself during The Flash, and I was jealous. During this movie, there was one scene that I thought was really interesting that I really wish they had explored more of the angle in, which I guess is the only thing that I wish there was more. And it's the scene in the Mason Temple, if you remember that.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And they didn't really get into how the Masons had anything to do with this apart from that scene. And it would have been very interesting to see a little bit more of the organized level of who was in on this whole thing. There were weird like power struggles happening. Like they were talking about the Ku Klux Klan. They were like, they're just power hungry. We don't want them around here and stuff like that. There was like these weird dynamics and weird things that were involved in all of this that really weren't explored. So I wish they had gone down that path just a little bit more. It would have been interesting to me.
Yeah, it was very interesting because, you know, I'm sure it's consistent and accurate portrayal of the era. You know, they have that parade in town and just, you know, the Klan's just there. And there's like characters you recognize from other scenes. You know, the one guy who every time we see him, there's the guy who's always saying something largely racist, but still you're like, oh, that guy, you know. So yeah, that definitely, you do a little bit of an about face, you know. It's like, and here come the Boy Scouts, and here's the Ku Klux Klan, you know. So yeah, I thought it was interesting. But as you're mentioning that, I was thinking like, yeah, there could definitely be some more organizational behind King. You know what I mean? There could be more like the Masons, the Klan, you know, anything like that. Is there anything like that in the book, Bill, or is really his character kind of front and center the way he seems in the movies?
Oh, he's front and center. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's like Mississippi Burning, you know, which, you know, people don't like, but I still think holds up, you know. I understand 2023.
I mean, I haven't seen it in a long time, but you know, my recollection of it isn't. I don't know. I guess I should dive back into it before I comment on a movie I haven't seen in more than 30
It's a great
years.
family movie.
Yeah, well, that's the kids and I. We always do Friday family movie nights, so that's probably a good one. I was gonna watch The Accused tonight, but maybe Mississippi Burning will be a little bit better. So
double feature. Yeah.
Can I tell you, I was hanging out with a friend last night, and he told me he fell asleep for much of Oppenheimer. And then he was like, I just wish they had focused more on the Japanese bombings. And I was like, oh, you mean the last third of the movie?
Well, I you know, Vinny, you'll appreciate that this show, our Oppenheimer episode, we talked about the movie for about an hour, and then I thought it would be fun to bring Tukey on for the last half hour. And one of my co-hosts just didn't get Tukey at all, and it was more fun for Tukey that I think my friend was just not having it. But my thought on Oppenheimer was that the runtime wasn't the issue. It was more that the amount of time, like you needed to tell me that like half the movie was going to be spent on figuring out whether or not he gets to keep his security clearance, and not the single most significant moment in human history, the actual detonation of the atom bomb. I'm not even entirely critical of the movie on the whole. I just felt like, oh, I didn't realize that was going to be the division of the story, you know. But I enjoyed this much more than that. I will say that, though. I did
100%.
Yeah.
If you're gonna waste 3 hours, folks, spend it with Scorsese. Is my advice to you.
I agree. But yeah, it's you know, we were talking at the beginning that this was the best one in a while, and I'm sure the last thing that he would want is you to compare it. But do you feel, we don't need to do like a ranking, but do you feel that it holds up with Scorsese's best? I personally feel like it does. I think, you know, there's very few movies that I can look at and be like, oh, it's flawless. But I don't think there's anything in this where I'm like, oh yeah, no, like what's happened to this guy? You know, does anybody have any thoughts on that? I'll ask you first, Bill.
Dude, I even like Bringing Out the Dead. So I'm a Scorsese. I mean, even when he's bad, he's good. It's like pizza. It's like crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Have you ever had pizza in the state of Ohio, Bill?
no, but I've had it in Vancouver, Washington, and it's pretty bad. Yeah, I mean, Irishman the book was better for the Irishman.
Yeah.
You know, I think the issue was De Niro beating up the guy. That was probably the biggest mistake in the movie of The Irishman. But yeah, he's the best. I mean, I even like Bringing Out the Dead, you know, and not many people like that movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's just Kundun. I understand people make fun of it. You know, he swung for the fences for that one, but yeah, this is up there. You know, it's not as good as Raging Bull or King of Comedy or Goodfellas or Casino, but it's up there. It's like an A-, you know.
I would say the big thing about Kundun was because it was about the Dalai Lama and it was produced by Disney. The Chinese government went to Disney and said, "Hey, how would you like to never have a movie play in China again, and miss out on $1 kajillion in audience?" So it opened in 2 theaters nationwide, and it just became a big flop because of that. It's a beautiful movie, in my opinion. But I felt New York was the Pizza in Ohio version of a Scorsese movie.
That's tough.
It's a dreadful, bad movie. I would say it's up there. It's structurally, it reminded me of Goodfellas, up into and including Ernest flipping and turning state's witness at the end. Like it's a part and parcel of his like Goodfellas, Casino, kind of like epic bio filmmaking, you know, true story filmmaking.
What do you think, Vinny, in terms of if you had physical DVDs on a shelf and you were putting like, well, this shelf is only going to fit like my 5 to 10 favorite Scorsese movies, would there be room for it on your shelf?
Yeah, I think so. You could tell he made that movie with a lot of love. Like there was a lot of respect for the subject matter, and you could tell that it was a really, really well presented and thought out film. I think, except for maybe the ending. We all agree. Whatever. I'm indifferent towards it, but other movies that he did that I love that were like period pieces, like Gangs of New York. Sure. I love that movie, even though it's silly at times and stupid as shit. I feel like I loved this movie the same way I loved that movie, but this movie wasn't quite as out there, and it was like more of a serious tone. So, yeah, I would say it's one of his better movies for a period. I didn't like The Aviator that much, so like for those period old school movies, I think this was probably his best one. Great movie. I mean, I give it an 8 or a 9. There wasn't much wrong with it, so it's got to be up there for him.
Yeah, no, I think we're largely in agreement when it comes to that. And I think that. Go ahead.
Can I throw a question out to you guys? Because I'm in a gangster movie class this semester, and the professor said something very interesting yesterday, and I'm curious to get your take on it. Which is, he said Scorsese's the greatest of all time. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
I mean, I'm hesitant to call anybody the greatest of all time in most things, but it's hard to, like, you say that, and it's not like I'm gonna be like, what, are you crazy? It's hard to disagree. I mean, you can compare other great directors and other work, but for the quality and sort of the reception and the acclaim for their body of work, what do you think, Vinny? Do you think it's realistic?
I don't know anybody I like more. Like, there's not a lot of directors that when I see that they're putting something out that I like, it's that much of a must see.
You mean besides Michael Bay?
Get out of here.
The ambulance.
I'm not qualified to say who's the best at anything, but I can say this. I would say he's my favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I'm qualified to tell you.
What I'll ask each of you this. Do you remember the first Scorsese movie you saw? Obviously, when you're a kid, you're not going to go from, Star Wars to Mean Streets or anything like that. Let me ask you first, Vinny, because you're the one who made me think of it. Do you remember the first time you saw a Scorsese movie? Which one it was? And
I somehow ended up with a VHS copy of Casino, and I love that movie to this day. Casino,
too.
if it's on, I watch it. It's probably in my top 3 favorite movies of all time. And again, it's the world building, it's the sense of humor that's in it. It's in the fact that he's so good at getting these great performances out of people that they like in that movie. 2 actors who are fantastic that you just want to murder whenever they come on screen. You want to murder James Woods and you want to kill Stone. So it's like, how do you get me that angry? You know what I mean? Like that was the stuff that made me immediately like love those movies. Is it made me actually physically feel emotion. So ever since that, I was hooked with Scorsese.
I agree that Casino, I think, interestingly, I saw Casino in the theater. I had not seen Goodfellas at that point, just whatever reason it hadn't happened. So I think that for people that, of course, many people saw Goodfellas first, and, obviously there's some, the Venn diagram has a lot of crossover on those 2 movies, but I don't think the movies are entirely that similar, but I can understand why people compare them. I feel like I enjoyed Casino more because I didn't have sort of the backstory of Goodfellas, which is also, of course, phenomenal. I'm really going out on a limb here talking about how good Goodfellas is. But I think I have an appreciation for Casino that even the people I saw it with when I was in college were like, yeah, it's all right. But I think as time has gone on, people are like, actually, no, Casino is actually really great. What about
Casino.
you, Ben? Go ahead. Sorry.
It's 1A and 1B to me. Casino.
Yeah.
Goodfellas. That's
in this class, we're watching these movies on the big screen. Yeah. I'd never seen Casino or Goodfellas on the big screen before. Only like, on a tube TV or like my TV, whatever. But it's like Casino is a more beautiful movie visually because it's set in that like beautiful old classic Las Vegas world, whereas Goodfellas is set in like the lower middle class Queens I grew up in. And it's a lot more squalid and just dirty. But I will say it felt like Casino was maybe 10 minutes too long. Whereas Goodfellas was just like tight up until that last shot of like, what's his name shooting at the screen? Pesci.
Yeah, but 10 minutes too long in a movie that's still great. It's not like it's 40 minutes too long. So, it's not too bad. Bill, did your parents take you to the Lafayette Theater in Suffern to see Raging Bull as a kid, or what was the first Scorsese you saw?
Well, I saw Goodfellas at the Hawthorne Theater with my dad in Hawthorne, New Jersey. It changed my life. Everything was just night and day after I saw that. I was a freshman in high school. I read in Barry Sonnenfeld's biography, he did like the last week of shooting on Goodfellas, and he noticed that Scorsese and De Niro were like snickering behind him, and he went up to Scorsese and he was like, "Are you guys like laughing at me?" And Scorsese goes, "Yeah, of course." He goes, "Why?" He's like, "Look at you, like look at the way you are." See you later, Barry.
I love that. I've never heard that.
And so, I think it was shot by Robert Richardson, and then Goodfellas was shot by Ballhaus. So, definitely 2 different type of cinematographers. But Goodfellas changed my life. It's that and Defending Your Life were my 2 favorite movies of all time.
Which is a fantastic movie, the Albert Brooks movie, Defending Your Life. And Bill, you talk about that movie so often. It reminds me of how much I liked it. I just randomly, went to see a movie with my mom, and it happened to be that. But that is a fantastic movie. And bringing in a comment that's relevant to Goodfellas, our buddy Dominicus Saxon bought some of Henry Hill's marinara gravy before he died. I didn't have the cojones to tell him it wasn't very good. I mean, if he took a swing at you, he would have fallen over, so you wouldn't have had to worry about it.
Henry Hill was such a bad drunk, and he would call into the Stern Show. I think we talked about this, Christian. He would call into the
Carmel Macchiata. Remember that?
But he would call into the Stern Show, falling down drunk, And then the best was the real life Spider's sister called in one morning while Henry was a guest to ask where they'd buried his body, because he always said it was beneath the club. So they dug up the basement of that club and it wasn't there. And Henry was so drunk and so gone at that point from prescription drug abuse that he literally couldn't remember where they buried Spider.
Did he get any plugs in for his sauce at least that morning?
Yeah,
By the way, who's backing Henry Hill to make pasta sauce?
I mean, come on. Somebody published that O.J. Simpson if I did it.
I'm going to say the last
So,
20 minutes of Goodfellas is a plug for how good Henry is at making gravy.
Please. He probably made it in a bathtub.
I mean, he was definitely a phenomenal Stern Show guest. Yeah, look, I think that look, there's a lot of reactions from people, including even someone who lives in this house, that the idea of the runtime was just very unappealing. But I do think that it's like, I don't know. Sometimes, yes, there are times where movies are just way too long and you don't know why. I don't want to delve into genres, but the fact that the last Batman movie was literally 3 hours and 1 minute, and it's just like, Christopher Nolan is a much better filmmaker than Matt Reeves. I'm sorry to say, his movies weren't 3 hours. They were long too. I'm just saying, sometimes it's okay to have your movie be long if you feel like that's the story you need to tell, and especially when it's based on a book. And to Bill's point, they probably cut a lot out of it. But I don't know. I feel like there isn't anybody who I think was like if you're considering seeing this because you love Scorsese, because you love great films, and you're not put up by the running time, there isn't anybody that I would say, oh yeah, you should stay home. Somebody like Dominicus Saxon who says, I'm really worried about that. It's like, you know what? It's going to be on Apple. If you want to split it up, that's not what the filmmaker wanted, but perhaps you're going to be more likely to enjoy it.
No, he wanted that. He wanted an intermission, I heard.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That did come up earlier. So, I mean, I would tell everybody who would be so inclined, they should definitely check out this movie. Let us know
if you're not into it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I'm talking over you. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
But I'm going to say, if you want to watch a movie in the theater that is half the runtime of Killers of the Flower Moon, I saw The Holdovers last week, and that was a great movie. Like, really fun, really funny, equally great performance from Paul Giamatti. And I highly recommend people go out and watch it in the theater. It's very old school. He shot it. He said it didn't shoot it like a period piece. He shot it like the crew was in the year 1970. And it shows how much he loves that period of movies. And that's all I want to plug. I
don't know anything. I don't know anything about that movie, but
I've seen the trailer. It's on my list of movies to go see.
I like Paul Giamatti. I feel like that endorsement. I'll put that up next on the list. But nobody tells Scorsese that the next episode of this show we'll be recapping the latest Marvel movie, The Marvels, with some of our panels and some of our regular panelists here, and from the Geekscape Network, where we will also be talking about the Loki series. There's room in my heart for all of it. I don't convince the Marvel people they need to go see Scorsese movies. I don't try to convince the Scorsese people. Maybe every once in a while I might say, like, this one's not terrible, but it's all right. Not everybody has to like everything. That's the world that we live in.
And Christian, can I recommend, if your audience wants a 7-hour runtime, they watch Who Are These Broadcasters in your recap of Kiss on the Tom Snyder Show.
Well, by the way, that was an hour and 40 minutes, but that was our Halloween spectacular, not our Halloween spooktacular, as I was clear.
That segment went on a while.
It was longer than the actual appearance Kiss made on the Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder, but it is one of my favorite pieces of video in broadcasting history, and that's why I devoted so much time to it. And Don Jameson was the perfect person to sit in with Eric Zane and I on Who Are These Broadcasters, which you can find on the Who Are These Podcasts network. It's not really a network, though, Vinny, right? It's the Carl Network, right?
I don't know what you all are up to, so I don't have an answer.
But and you can also find it where you get your audio podcasts, and of course subscribe to the Bladtcast, Bladtcast, this channel, and the audio version. Vinny, we talked about the creep off. Give the elevator pitch for Subreddit Surfing, one of my favorite shows on YouTube, only partially because of your delightful co-host, Cardiff Electric.
Well, it's funny because I keep pitching you as a guest to come on, and Cardiff just keeps going, absolutely not. I don't know what the deal is there.
I was on once, and he felt like that was enough.
I'm just kidding. Subreddit surfing, every week we do a crazy experiment. My potato friend Cardiff and I, we pick a different Reddit page, and we go through it to try to figure out what these people are talking about and what they're actually doing on there. So, for example, we'll pick a page like we just did cryptids a few weeks ago. So people who believe in Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, and all that stuff, we put a StreamYard link on the page, and we invite anybody who has a story to come on and tell us about it. So at times it gets very interesting and it's very silly. Subredditsurfing.com if you want to check it out.
Yeah, and as I told both you and Cardiff when it first started, what I liked about it was that you would have on somebody that believed in Bigfoot, and you wouldn't pretend to believe with it, but you also didn't have them on just so that you could make fun of them. It was like, no, tell us why you believe this. And I feel like that's the interesting take on that. Like, I'm going to admit I don't believe in Bigfoot, but I would talk all day to somebody who does to hear why they're so convinced that it's real.
We did an episode a few weeks ago about exorcisms, and we had a guy on who performs exorcisms over the phone. And the only way to get a hold of him is on Reddit. So, like, you're not going to find this type of coverage anywhere else but subreddit surfing phone. You're not going to find out about the phone exorcist anywhere else.
No, exactly. So, subreddit surfing, the creep off are the two places to find Vinnie. Liam, I feel like you don't like to be found. Do you just want me to plug the fact that you were on an earlier episode of the Bladtcast talking about the premiere of the Chevy Chase show?
I will say, even longer than your Kiss wrap-up was our 2-part look at the Chevy Chase show, which I will say, I will own this, was entirely my fault because I wouldn't shut up. But I do have 2 plugs other than that, 3 plugs, because 2 months ago I was on the Rock Bottom podcast with Ray DeVito.
I'm so sorry for you and your family.
Which I have not done subsequently, but it's definitely worth a listen if you want to hear a guy beg shut-ins for money. Also, I was on I'm December 13th. I have my own show at the Improv here in beautiful Los Angeles and Hollywood in the small room in the lab. Please come out if you want to be put on the guest list. I don't really make much money, so feel free to email me through my website, liam@heyitsliam.com. And I'll put you on the guest list. Even Christian Blatt. And I also want to mention March 10th, I will be at Comedy at the Carlson, sitting in a sea of fat bearded dudes, watching Stuttering John stumble through his set, which is something I'm very excited about.
I'm going to sit you with Carl and Shuli for that. You'll have a great time.
Okay.
I think that'll be.
I think Carl's not allowed in the room, if I'm not mistaken.
You somebody's a little bit behind in the narrative, aren't you, Liam?
I've been directing in a sitcom class, so I've not been listening to much podcasts. I will admit that.
Which, funny enough, my wife worked in that same sitcom class 19 years ago. So I thought it was very funny when Liam was doing that.
Christian's younger wife. I want to just put a plug in for.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. You know what? Thank you. I appreciate any time that we can call attention to the fact.
Holy crap! Liam wants to plug Christian's wife.
Hey, wait a minute.
I've heard she's young.
This is horrifying.
Not anymore. Bill, I know that your footprint is very light on the internet these days. Is there anything you want to promote? Whether it's anything for you or just like, hey, I saw a great show or a great movie that maybe nobody heard about. Obviously, other than defending your life.
Liam, did you see the holdovers at the Arrow Theater? Is that
okay? No, I know. There's a class at my school.
Yeah,
that's taught by Leonard Maltin, and he had Alexander Payne come in to do a Q&A after the movie, and I got to talk to Alexander Payne for a little bit after the movie. So that's my plug for how good my life is right now.
I heard it's the best movie of the year. Actually,
it's a great movie.
Seriously, at the Arrow Theater, and it went gangbusters. That's why.
No, it was. I would say, for a movie that's not pitched to 20-year-olds, it went really amazingly well at the screening I went to.
The head writer of Variety hated it for crazy moronic reasons, which is controversial as well. But Is this like part of the Start Joe universe? Is that what's going on?
I mean,
Cardiff the potato.
you know who Cardiff is, right? We've talked about the potato. Yeah, he's a fucking potato. Look at the potato. You know all about that. Yeah.
Oh my God. I feel like I'm famous now. He's a potato.
Well, the next time you're on, maybe just me. I might have been speaking with Cardiff earlier
he lost
today.
his mind a couple of days ago, Stuttering John, right? On the pot. He came back.
I don't think we can have that conversation right now. Vinny's in business with an upcoming. What is it? How do people just go to Comedy at the Carlson? There's a live event with Stuttering John. I think Stuttering John live. I hear Cardiff promoted.
What is Comedy at the Carlson?
That's a club up in Rochester where Vinny works. Vinny, I believe you're there right now because it looks like
in the building.
Yeah, he's in the building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, Liam's going to be there, and I'm feeling like I'm missing out if I don't go to Stuttering John live in March. But we'll see how it all shapes out. Anyway, I just have to try to convince my wife that it's a good idea.
I'm going to take that as a yes. You'll be there. Right?
Well, more than anything, I want to be there for the night before when Carl does his set that Cardiff is writing for him. I offered Cardiff if he wants anybody to just read it over and help give him pointers, I would be more than happy to. But
there's lots of ways we're going to go with this because I'm going to help Cardiff write Carl's his act for him. There's lots of things that I know Carl hates about stand-up comedy. I've known Carl for quite a long time, and I work in the field, so he always tells me the things that he can't stand. So I'm going to make sure that we make Carl as much of a hack as possible. Airline, every awful dumb thing we can.
Yeah, and I just want to. I just want to put things. I just want Carl to have to say things that anybody who knows him knows he doesn't believe. Like I would hope that Cardiff would have anecdotes like, "So I'm getting my 5th booster shot, and I can't believe," it just goes from there. But anyway, what were you going to say, Liam? I'll give you the Jerry Springer final thought of the episode.
Well, I hope it's not the final thought of the episode, but I hope you give Carl a nice, juicy impression to do, like something that is very easy, like Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird. Something easy and
the
timeless.
Potato thinks like that.
Oh, don't worry, I can help if you need help.
Great. I want to see Carl's Jack Nicholson. I want him to turn around and do the whole thing.
You got to push that.
It would go a little something like this.
Hey, boys and
hold it between your knees. Yeah. Anyway, on that note, thank you to everybody for joining us, and let us know if you check out the movie what you think. Thanks to Liam McEneany, Bill Narducci, and of course Vinnie Paulino. That is all the time we have for now. A third of the running time of Killers of the Flower Moon. I think we did great. But that's all the time we have for now. We will see you next time on the Bladtcast.